was waiting to see if you were going to stall your timeout. I was waiting. I already had it there. I was waiting to see. All right. So first part we talked about, you have a brow ridge. So that's the very thick area right here. So that's somebody who wants to understand every step of the process. Step 1, 2, 3, 4. If I go from beginning to end and I leave out the middle, you're going to, nope. What's in there? We were talking about the fuller upper eyelid. So you like to do things together, right? Your eyebrows are very close to your eyes, so you understand things very fast. On top of, you have high ears, so you're like a double thread of I can see and hear things fast. So if you imagine data trying to get into the center of your forehead, right? Mm-hmm. If your eyes or your eyebrows are low and your ears are high, then it comes in twice as fast as other people. So your big frustration with people, why don't they understand it as fast as I do, right? And then he's been smiling the whole time. You were talking about taking care of everyone, but you also have this little notch in your nose right here like I have, which is you were the nicest person until somebody backs you in the corner. F with her, F with her, F with them, and then they're gonna have a problem with you, right? But until then, be nice. Like, there's a movie, it was like, be nice until it's time to not be nice. That's what that is right there. Right? We talked about noses are like umbrellas, so it's not the size of the nose, but using the microphone here, so if I take the mic up, right, it's where the nostrils flare out. So it's not always the size of the nose, but like how do the nostrils play a part of it? And so your nostrils go wide, and so it's like an umbrella. You're always doing things thinking, how can I help take care of other people? Very large nostrils, so somebody who has large nostrils like that, you tend to take on too much at times because you think, oh, I can do more, right?
Sounds familiar. What would you say?
Right?
Janie's sitting over there.
Same thing when you smile, you see a little bit of gum, right? So that's you give your all when you're doing it, right? Then you have a deep verbal affirmation line right here. So that's the sincere compliment. It's not, hey, thanks, thank you for something specific. It goes a long way with you as well. And then your ears stick out, so you like to push back on how everybody else does things, right? So ears are like wind drag. So if a plane, the reason they're aerodynamic, right, is because they have flat angles. So if your ears were close, you just go with the flow. But if your ears push out, you like to push back on how everybody else does something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sounds like you.
So, and here's what's interesting, because it's not that it's wrong. I love to know every step, and you might find this interesting, or you might be able to tell something. Well, this makes sense. But so every step, I want to know every step. So I race on Friday, Saturday nights, I race dirt track and stuff. And so, but I love okay, here's the car, here's step A, here's what it needs to look like.
Right.
And I do want to know all the components. Where do I get this? Where does it go? Where does it? But I need point A. I need to know where I'm starting and what it needs to be before I get to that point. Like if I go step by step, it's like, okay, first you paint this, then you put the front end. No. I need to know the whole thing.
Right.
And then give it all to me.
Right.
So
you need to know. So but I couldn't just go, hey, we're going to get you a car, and then the car shows up, right? You have to be involved in the process. Some people are just, they're happy in a transaction, right? Like, hey, I'm going to buy this, it's going to show up. Other people are like, whoa, wait, what all I need to be involved with it? So for example, if I was a realtor and I was working with you on something, I would say, okay, hey, we're going to start the loan process. We're going to get you the house. That's what you want. But in the meantime, here's the steps I'm going to need you involved in the process with, right?
Yes.
Instead of just, some people are like, hey, I want a home. Okay, good, I'll get you a home. And that's it, So you need to be involved in the process once you know what your goal and your target is.
Yeah, perfectionist. What about the line in the center of my...
Oh, squint? Yeah, you've got more than two. So if you have more than two, it's perfectionist-like tendencies.
What was the other one about a freight train?
Freight train, you'll see one that's a solid line like down here. Literally looks like their forehead's cut in half, like just a deep, deep line right here.
Yeah.
And when you see that, that's somebody's called a freight train line. So once they make up their mind, just get the hell out of their way, because it's like being run over by a freight train. So it's, if a freight train's coming from you, you can stand in front of it and get hit, or you can get on board and try and steer it. Yes.
Erica gets frustrated with me a lot too, because I'm like, okay, let's go. So as soon as I think my eyebrows are connected to my eyelashes. Got it. I heard you, did it, next.
Right.
I'm so long-winded with my answers for him. He's like, next thing. And I'm like, I hadn't even finished my sentence.
I'm already there. I'm already with you next.
We're on the same board. Let's go.
Super good. Well, anything we can do for you with some of the commonality with having people like you in our corner, and I've met people like you. I mean, it's just sitting across from the table. It's like hearing some of this. It's like you're not alone. Somebody's been through it and coming and being successful out of it and finding the gift and the teachable moments and, how to take the grace and utilize it properly and let it be a lesson or display, how you carry yourself through that. And ultimately what it does end up providing, some of the great things that you might not see now. Just wait.
Yeah, one of the quotes that I love, that I keep with me at all times, which is very similar to everything that we're talking about right now, is success is not the absence of failure, it's the persistence through failure. Going through that adversity and continuing through it is the success that you're seeking, as opposed to dwelling in that, allowing that door to close and moving forward with that, and like teaching your kids that. It's absolutely beautiful. I think that's a great thing that you now get to pass on, not only to your kids but also to everybody that you touch, as far as in the football program and any program that you've gone through and been with. I think it's really cool that you have that ability. I love that.
Well, I just had this conversation with one of my players the other day that's going through a really hard time with his an illness in his family, and it doesn't make sense, and people don't want to hear. Like, one of my favorite, if you look at my Bible on my desk, James chapter 1 is highly highlighted and marked up, because it says, I've spent a lot of time in that chapter, consider joy when you face trials, right?
Yes.
Well, people don't want to hear that when the trial is just starting. You don't walk up to somebody and say, hey, consider it joy, you're going through this. They're going to get mad and hit you and be like, you're crazy, right? Like, it doesn't make sense. But, but when you go through those, and now I look back, and I when it says consider it joy, the joy I've had now, I didn't know at the time, the trials I was going through, but when you look back and go, man, I wouldn't have this joy in my life if I didn't go through that certain thing.
True.
God wouldn't have brought me to Lindenwood, would not have brought, if I would have got my way back then. And so, it's hard, that scripture, it's probably not super received well a lot of times, because it doesn't make sense to, especially if you're somebody that's outside of, really growing in a faith or have a solid belief in Christ. It's hard to understand that, because, we don't, what is there to look forward to if you're outside of Christ, right? So it's like, at the end of the day, we are going to, if we pursue through that. And that's what now I have, because I wouldn't, at the time, I didn't find joy in some of these things. I was frustrated. I didn't understand. I couldn't even make sense of his plan. But now I have the luxury of looking back and going, God, you made complete sense in this, and thank you for that. Thank you for, you were wiser, obviously, than my choices. And so, yeah.
There's something to that. He only hands you what you can handle, essentially, and like it might not feel like it at that time. It might feel very heavy, it might feel terrible, but once you get through it and he helps you through it, it's like, oh, okay, I see now, I understand why you gave that to me.
Man, and like you said, there's so many different ways and avenues, and I'm sure we're going to do this again, because we do want to talk more football too, but it's kind of transition. We're probably going to loop this all back in, and it's another part of like the subcategories that we wanted to talk about today. Because here's the deal. In our health, in our kids' health, in our desire to want to biohack's the big thing, and we've got a lot of cool things in store as far as, I don't really prefer to call it biohacking. I really don't like the phrase, but that's what people know it as. So I'm going to give into it as we start this journey, but we're going to change the dynamic of that. We have a lot of cool things in store to literally maximizing the vital performance of the body.
Right.
But also too, one of the empowering statements we want to talk about in a whole nother topic is, as you see people get well, you see people do these things that you might want to do, and you see them have the successes in their health, losing the weight, kids are healthier, their performance is through the roof, their kids are making varsity, you're having the birth story of your life, or your friends are. Here's what a lot of people need to adopt. Anybody can say you can't. As long as you are not one of them.
Right.
I mean, how often do we hear that? It's like, man, I can't do this. I can't do an aerial, or I can't get this to go away, or I can't do that trick, or I can't throw that hard, or I can't run that fast. We can go into self-speak, and that's something that I work on daily, honestly, but that's a whole nother avenue.
Right.
But in your health journey, in protecting yourself and your family's health, wealth, desires, goals, dreams, let everybody else say you can't. And just don't subscribe to that yourself. As long as you're the one that does not say that, you can really do whatever you want.
Because that negative talk from them is coming from a place of jealousy, typically. I talk to my team all the time about this kind of thing, where it's like they're having issues with essentially what I clarify as or categorize as a bully. Anybody that's telling you can't or that you're not good enough is a bully because they're jealous because
You're not
they
ready for that.
can't do what you can
Yeah.
and what you're allowing yourself to be able to do. So they have to go on the negative because that's the only defense mechanism they have to allow themselves to feel good about the fact that they can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so frustrating, especially in today's society with the kids. I mean, getting that even younger and younger now with negative talk from friends, family sometimes, and having to really speak into that into many people, like exactly what you just said. Anyone can say you can't as long as you're not one of them. If you're not one of them and you're saying you can, don't let the negative come in, like you just said.
And whatever you think, you're right. I don't have enough money. You're right. Oh, I'm going to be sick for a long time. Well, you're right. Like, and whatever I can't do this trick. You're right. Like, whatever you think, you're right. So, recovery hallway. Just like staring at me, but not a hole through me. She's like, this guy might be smarter than he looks. Like, she's like listening. And I'm like, and then she's asking great questions because let's face it, especially in the healthcare industry, let's just blow this out of the water. We think that there's this big us versus them thing. I don't care if it's, medical doctors and naturopaths or PTs and chiros or, the orthos and ATs and chiros. It's like there's this misnomer, this misconception that we all have to have this huge pride balloon,
Right.
and it needs to be popped.
Right.
But that's really not the case. I mean, that probably is the case. Some of these people carry pride balloons, but that doesn't need to be that way. Let's pop the balloons. And I'm like, well, this is super cool because we collaborate very well. And you've already heard me like, wish we had somebody that would help us do this. I don't want to do that. Like how can we work together? So, and then the questions that were being asked, we can all ask very provoking questions, and backhanded, snide questions. It's like, let's see if this guy really knows what he's talking about. Where is the trigeminal nerve? It's like, what? No, stop. It's facial. It's part of the face. Yeah, we can talk Bell's palsy. I mean, so we don't have to go, yes. But she's literally asking great questions and more, what do you think? And how can we do this better versus like the test questions? So afterwards, I'm like,
Well, that was super cool too. Sorry to interrupt you, but it was really funny to see because I was standing back. So I was back with the rest of the coaching staff. She was like middle ground, and then the team. She was literally by herself, just like he said, taking in everything he said. Well, we had sent out this survey, essentially, this questionnaire for the Lionettes to go ahead and ask their questions. And Erin had filled it out, and she looked back at us at one point and said, he's answering all my questions. These are all mine. These aren't the girls. These are mine. And it just made me giggle. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love this girl already. And just the intrigue and the great questions like you just said. Like, I just had to throw that in there because it was hilarious to see her like giddy, but also like, I don't know if I should have sent all these in. Like, maybe I should have let the girls. But it was really fun to see the like genuine knowledge that she wanted to intake.
Yeah. And that's why, so as the talk was going on, it was probably one of the more unorthodox talks I've ever given because I literally let them kind of lead, but it was fun. We went around the room, but then it was like I just had this innate need to like then kind of pull her in, right? I'm looking at her across the room being like, right? And she's like head nodding. She's like, why aren't there more people like you guys here? It's like, I don't know. This is why we need people like you. And at that moment, we weren't even done yet. And I was like, I don't know what she's doing, but we're going to hire her. I don't know if we need to. I don't know if we can afford her, but we will. We're going to hire her somehow. So afterwards, I was like, Erica, who's the gal over there that didn't know what side she was on, but she really seemed to like us? Who is that?
It's like, that's Erin. And don't worry, I already set up an interview with her.
It's like, I already sent my resume, actually.
Quite literally got
Yeah,
a
we
resume
literally go
the
home that
next
night
day.
and she's like, she already sent me her resume. I was like, oh, good. Yeah, she's hired. Yeah, maybe I'll work for her. I don't know. The story. And even if they tried, they'd quickly cut it out because those are not the facts. Right. And it's real easy, I think, in our lives, whether it's business or family or personal or health. Health is a big one. I'm going to tie it back into that. A team event, whatever it is. One, don't let the story become the facts. build the facts and tell the story.
Right. And something that's interesting that you bring up too, as far as like health and other aspects of how this statement plays into life in and of itself, is the story can be anything. The story can be a diagnosis.
Yes.
The story can be, like you said, kind of playing into, well, it's never happened before.
Right.
And okay, but that's not your story anyway.
Yeah. Well, we've never had that happen to us, so it's just...
It's not just a built up, pent up sometimes. Sometimes it can be other variations of what the story actually is to you.
No 14U team has ever beaten 18U team.
Exactly.
Like, okay, why not today?
Come at me.
Why not today? Man, well, what if we go get blown out? Well, what if you don't? Well, what if it doesn't work? Well, what if it does? Well, how do I know if this is going to work? Well, I can tell you most anything that you do, you're not going to know after one try, one pitch, one inning, one song, so...
Well, it didn't work for my friend.
Yeah.
Or it didn't work for this team.
That's a good point, too.
So why would it work for us?
Don't let somebody, and I've said this before, I've said this multiple times, don't let somebody else write a chapter in your book. Don't let somebody else's story determine the facts that aren't even there yet. They're not even facts. The story is not the facts. And don't let somebody else's story. I think a lot of times too, just being careful of whether it's a community, a person, a team, a coach, be very careful who you let kind of speak that way, and maybe help them overcome that mindset a little bit too. Because just because they went through something such a way, or they've never been a part of something for the result that it is you're looking for, doesn't mean that you can't achieve it. It just means that they haven't. The most expensive flight I've ever booked in my life. And I'm like, okay, I'm going. So I show up. But what I'm getting at here is that was a very fun weekend, because we were also on the phone that Sunday. I'm already in St. Louis because I flew back. He's driving back. And I want to know, how did you meet Rick, first of all? Like, where did that come out? But we're on the phone because one of your good friends, who's Ricky Stenhouse, who won the Daytona 500, like, I'm watching, and Larson too, and it's like, these boys I text you, I'm like, these boys are going to mess around and run 1-2. I was like, are you turning around? So that was pretty cool, because I was like, if you turn around, I'm getting on a flight. Like, figure it out. I know. But how did you meet Rick? Because you were also you were at his wedding. And that relationship's super cool, which I think, kind of want to introduce people to. It's like, the people who we all know and who people like you know. But how did you guys meet?
Yeah, so my best friend, Nick Hoffman, he actually we grew up together. He lived in Illinois, and then they moved to North Carolina. His dad was building engines and stuff, worked for NASCAR teams. So they moved out there. Nick's raced a long time, and then Nick and him became buddies there, 10 years ago. He ended up buying a house which sits just out in front of Ricky's, not even a quarter of a mile from front door to front door. So, I went out just with Nick a bunch of times. We'd go to the Chili Bowl and do different things. And, that's where I originally met Ricky. It was like 2017, 18-ish. We would see each other here and there. And then really in 2019, once Nick bought the house right there in front of Ricky's, I went out to visit and spent almost 2 weeks in North Carolina, and we all just became damn near inseparable. Cool. So, we ended up doing a ton of stuff together. We, went to New York for the PBR, and it was just me, Nick, and Ricky flew out there for a whole weekend. And
that's so fun.
We just tried to burn the city of New York down. And we did it.
I could see. Being successful.
Yeah, we gave a pretty good effort. I know that much. But and it was just, we became really, really close. Ricky's awesome, and thankful for those relationships, because I didn't, you always, I don't know, I guess in racing it's such a weird dynamic, because none of us are like, oh my God, we look up to those people. You can just go meet them. But it's obviously more than that. So just being around those guys is a lot of fun, and I've learned a lot from them, really, just kind of getting to be buddies with Ricky and Larson. You see how good they are at what they do, and it kind of, funnels the energy. You see where they put all their motivation into. So, and then we've gone to the 500 now a couple times. We were there the year that Ricky sat on the pole. That was a wild time as well.
I bet.
Yeah. he sat on the pole, and then what's cool about Daytona is they qualify the weekend before. It's not the same week, so he qualified on Sunday, sat on the pole, and then we had a whole week in Florida celebrating it, just bouncing around. And so that was a blast. And yeah, now we see each other all the time. This past weekend, Ricky was racing his sprint car at the short track where we were. So me, Nick, and Ricky are all parked right next to each other. Just three amigos.
Three amigos.
It was really cool. He wins the 500, and we were gonna go. Literally, he had texted me that week. It was like, "Hey, are you guys gonna come? Like, let me know." But we had been down there for almost 2 weeks. We went in January, and we had said we were gonna go, and then last minute, I'm like, "Man, let's just go home." Like we were wore out, and of course, he's up
like,
front
"I'll
at the
show
end of
you,"
it. And,
quite literally.
I texted, right after the races. I texted Madison, his wife, and was like, I literally said, "Holy shit!" That's all I could think at the time. I think there was a few others, things that I had texted.
In there probably.
Right, and she literally texts back. It's so funny because Madison is like this just amazing woman. She is so like very just God-fearing, like this. And the only things that she texted back was, "Let's fucking go." Like, and I read that and I was like, okay, the emotions are real. So it was awesome. And literally, she was like, "Where are you guys at?" And we were probably 2 hours north of Florida at that point. So we're 5-6 hours. And I was like, man, if we were still in the state of Florida, I would have turned the rig around. We would have drove straight back there.
Yeah.
And so that was, it was really cool for him. Neither me or Nick went. We had both talked about going.
Oh my gosh.
Neither one of us were there. So we texted, me and Nick and Ricky are in a text, later that week. I'm like, we're never going to be invited back. So every year we've gone, we haven't won. We don't go, he wins. So.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Mick and Gordy enter the chat.
Yeah.
We're never missing a Daytona 500.
Yeah.
Rick enters the chat. You're never coming again.
Yeah. So it was really cool for him. And they've had a great year, too.
Yeah.
They've had a lot of good runs. And, at Talladega, they were good again, just bad fortune. It's the way it goes in play racing. So, it's just really cool to get to see that realm of motorsports from that far behind the scenes is really cool. But just being around those guys, I actually have known Larson longer than I've known Ricky because Kyle grew up racing at Tri-City and those things. So it's fun. And then getting to race against Kyle now, he's running the late model.
Yeah.
It was fun the other night. He literally started behind me in the feature and we were getting ready to go out for driver intros. He's like, "I know you're going to want to run the bottom. So you're going to move out of the way for me?" I'm like, "No, absolutely not." I was like, "Just to make a point, I'm going to stay in the way."
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny.
One of the few times you'll see Gordy just go up to put the 6 car behind Gordy, and that's when you'll see him just go to the top.
Right, yeah, literally. Yeah. And so actually the other night, I ended up running the top way more than I ran the bottom the other night. And he goes to me after the races, and he's like, "Dude, I literally look up and you're just blasting the fence." He's like, "I was proud of you."
Determine, can you?
Yeah.
Or let's do it at 4 weeks and see. It's like, you know what? Maybe we can get you back sooner, because protection doesn't always mean like, okay, you're injured. You have to. We'd rather keep you out longer. It's like, no, if we can bring you back sooner, that's a whole different mental health story we can get into.
Right.
So let's let me end my passionate rant of and I'd say this is going to be. If you care about your student athlete, don't hear what I'm not saying, but if we truly care about our student athletes, and this is going to be for you, get the information to be on the front end of any sort of injury prevention, any sort of accelerating their performance too, strengthening in all the right ways. So jump in and tell us a little bit about some of the things we've compiled into this Ultimate Sports Physical.
Yeah, so they get a chiropractic evaluation, of course.
Structure and function.
Yep. Then we also do an AMI screening, so that's kind of what I'm bringing to the table. So it's a movement screening, so they're running through different movements that all athletes have to do: planks, side planks, squats, jumping, landing, running. So everything that all athletes do, no matter what kind of athlete. I think that's what's so cool about this test, is that it's not just geared towards like the traditional athlete. It's for artistic athletes, it's for swimmers,
I
football
love
players,
artistic
everything.
athletes. Don't fly past that. Define artistic athletes.
Artistic athletes. So that's whenever I think about like dancers, cheerleaders, even gymnasts, honestly.
Oh yeah. Athletes, yes.
Yeah. Athletes.
we just categorized them. I think we did that here. Didn't we do that on the podcast?
Yeah.
You just kind of coined it of artistic athletes. And for the AMI, real quick, is we did a podcast with Dr. Trent Nessler, who came up with this technology, and we'll go into that a little bit later. But for those of you that want to dive into this AMI technology, he does a very good job of at least laying the foundation in that podcast.
Yeah, and this whole test is something that, the whole physical really, but I feel like really with the AMI, it's so specific to that athlete that you're not going to get anywhere else that you're going. Like everything that you get as an athlete is so like mass testing, mass physicals, mass
it's a broad,
workout programs.
Blanketed,
which like that's not how it really should be. Like same thing with coming back from injury. You kind of alluded to this, but like what we learn in a textbook is not what's really going to happen every single time, and that's what's happening with schools and universities around here is that you're like, oh well, you have an ankle sprain, so here's your protocol, and like that's not how it should be. Everyone's different, and that's how this is definitely going to treat them as athletes.
So chiropractic evaluation, structural and functional, that's just that should be a part of the status quo. Not here to sell you chiropractic care. You'll come along, you'll get it, you'll understand why you need it, but it's a part of the evaluation to look at the athlete, the student athlete, or yourself as an entire person. Do the AMI, I mean, this is like literally technology that we place on you in certain areas to give measurements in different X, Y, and Z angles, and there's just so much tech that goes into that. We get a whole report. I do a TPI evaluation, which is Titleist Performance Institute, not just because I love golf. Yes, it's a golfing program that's come up by a chiropractor who created TPI. But I do this because biomechanically it gives us so much more, another layer of information to be able to see how is the body moving, where is deficiency that just statically. You know, we've done the dynamic in the AMI. Now let's just get more support to that. A couple more testing. So even though it's a golf named testing platform, it's for any athlete. We can do it for hockey players. We can do it for the artistic athletes and dancers, gymnasts, and we've done it. Soccer players. We just did a soccer player ultimate sports physical, which is just so important as we just bring more value and show you, and also trackable, because when we do it again, we have all kinds of data that we can track, all kinds of different data points. Recovery hallway is something that you all get to experience too as a part of the ultimate sports physical. Recovery is probably one of the most sought after now, and was some of the most underrated. And compression therapy, cryotherapy, infrared sauna, red light, there's so much, and we're going to be expanding some of this too. But we're going to give you guys the opportunity to do that as well.
Yeah, it's like you want to perform at this high level, but then you can't do that every single day if you're not recovering, if you're not taking care of yourself, the hallway, and even like nutritionally too. That's a whole other rabbit hole we can go down. We won't start that right now. You can't be mad at the results you get for the work you didn't put in. And that's not quite how that quote goes, but that's how it sits in my head right now. Like, you cannot complain about the results you didn't get because of only the work you put in. And so the recovery hallway is going to be so good. It's nice to see people starting to come in for more of that as well. If there is any sort of chronic injuries, inflammation issues, torn tendon, ligament issues, labral issues, if necessary, if we need to, we're also going to give people who do the ultimate sports physical and their parents the opportunity for $100 off of our tissue regenerative therapy mapping visit to see, maybe it's a knee and meniscus issue, maybe it's a ankle, maybe it's plantar fasciitis, rotator cuff, whatever it might be. We can do that. This is all things that are going to be on our website that you can look into and you can research about, or just give us a call and we can go over more. A lot of people in this world do something every day and have a job to provide for their families because they love and are passionate about their families. But why are we letting something rule our time and schedule that we do not love and are passionate about? Think about that for a second. Well, I gotta have a job to make money. That's fine, I don't disagree. But at what point in time, and where did we miss the boat, and what resources do we need to help us do what we love and are passionate about, to provide for who we are most loving and passionate about? So we're letting something dictate our schedule that we don't love and are passionate about, take away time from what we most love and are passionate about, which is our families.
So when you said no or when I said no leftovers, you were provoking like you're only giving your family 10%. It's like when we choose that, it's like, well, I have to. No, now you're making an excuse. We literally choose to, a lot of us choose or haven't been brought into perspective like, look, stop choosing to give what you love most and are passionate about the most, your family, your loved ones, kids if you have them, your family, and choosing to give them 10% of your love and passion. However, you're gonna go do this thing every day that you don't love and are not passionate about.
That's hurting you.
That's causing you to give the 10%. And it's like, hang on a second. And I've said this, I have gone on record, I have told this to my team. Every one of my team members can make more money than me, don't care.
Right.
I know what it takes for me to be able to want and do what I want to do and provide with my family and to race and do those things because that's what I love and passionate about. You talked about time. We did end up doing a podcast where we talked about time, and this is so important because here's proof. I'm nothing special. We have far from made it. We are growing. We are blessed. But I just decided one day we got rid of our Thursday evening hours. And you know how many people cared? Yeah, pretty close. Like
You can't
0.
see me if you're not watching, but I'm holding up a big old 0.
0. And it's like, and some people come in, wait, you're not here on Thursdays? It's like, no, because this Thursday, it is June 20th. This Thursday, as long as I get my stuff done, it allows us the ability to get in the motorhome, load up the race car, load up the kids, head to Spoon River, go race Thursday and Friday. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be able to give who I love and what I love and I'm passionate about the most and go do the things we love and are passionate about the most and give them 100% of my time. Now, I'm very lucky. I do what I love and am passionate about. So just perspective. Don't be afraid to start to have that conversation and make a life shift. It's never too late.
No.
You're not the only one in the scenario. But this is exactly why when I was listening to, I forget what podcast it was. I don't know if it was Dropping Bombs or I don't know if it was AF. I don't know what it was, but I literally just put this in our ClickUp board. And I just said love versus passion. But this is exactly what I had in mind and why I wanted to bring it to you guys because I am so passionate about making sure people do what they want and love to do and are passionate about and have the ability to do so.
Right.